Hi, my name is Dr. Verna Price, and I am thrilled to be talking with you about the ethics of care for our students. And what does it mean to build efficacy in our students? What does it mean to build efficacy in our principals, in our staff, in our parents, in our community? When we talk about the ethics of care, we're talking really about how do we help students find their value. You know, I can remember being a fifth grade teacher, my first day on the job, and I got a stack of folders, and those stack of folders basically were the records of my students that other teachers had put in place for me to read. Now, I didn't have enough sense to know that I should have read those, but maybe there was something in me that told me don't read those files, because there was something about me that I wanted my students to get to know who I was. I wanted my students to know how to trust me. I wanted my students to know how to respect me. And I wanted my students to know one really important thing. I wanted them to know that I cared about them. You know, my principal's name was Mrs. Gracie Young. And the first day of teaching, she said to me, "Verna, if you do nothing else, you love your students. And when you love your students, you will find that they will love you back, but most importantly, they will learn from you." You know, it was Maya Angelou who said, "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care." What do we mean by efficacy? Efficacy is our students' ability to understand that they matter, that they are worth something, that they are valued, that they are important. And in my work as a teacher, when I didn't read those files, I decided that I was going to do whatever I had to do for my students to make sure that they knew that I cared. I didn't just use my position as a teacher to say, hey, this is what I want. When I became an assistant principal, it was about helping my staff and my students know, my parents know, that this lady right here, I care about you. I care about the fact that you came. I care about the fact that you sent your students to school this morning, regardless of how they came to school. And you know, sometimes our students come to school not ready to learn. They have had traumatic experiences that morning. Something went wrong in their family. There was an argument. Some students have just been abused in some way, shape, or form. And they come to school not quite ready for the classroom. I wanted my students and my parents to know, no matter what, however your students come, however you come as a staff, even sometimes my staff, they would come to school, they weren't ready to teach. They weren't ready to interact with their students. They weren't ready to give their all. Why? Because they had experienced some trauma. They were going through some things. My principals, sometimes they're not ready to lead. Sometimes they're not ready to connect. Efficacy means that I want you to understand how important you are. And I'm going to do my part in helping you figure that out. So what was that journey for me? And as I am the key consultant and project person for Ministry of Humanities who works with our principals. And when I accepted that responsibility, I wanted my principals to know some core tenets about what does it mean to be a leader. I come from the perspective of power and understanding your power. Many years ago, I wrote a book called The Power of People. 4 kinds of people who can change your life. Now, I didn't really know anything about power. I just knew that there was something going on in my classroom when I did not read the files. And I later discovered that my teachers had given me the last stop kids. You know who those kids are? Those are the kids that nobody else wants. Those are the kids who've been written off. Those are the kids who've been sent to foster care, who don't know their parents. Those are the kids who can barely read and they're already in 5th grade. Those are the kids who have so many letters behind their names in terms of special needs that you can't even get to all of them. I had the last stop kids. And unfortunately, most of those students were students of color. and they were put into my class. And here's what's so amazing. In my building, I was the only classroom teacher who was a person of color. I was the only one. And here it is, brand new teacher. My students were stacked. They were the last top students. I am so thankful that I didn't know that. I am so thankful because I didn't treat them like they were last top students. You know what? With an ethic of care, you've got to let your students know that no matter what happened last year, this year is a new year. This year, they are going to have another chance, another opportunity to do their best and be their best and be the brilliant young people that they were born to be. So when I didn't read those files, I knew something was going on. I later went on to the University of Minnesota and got my PhD and took a look at classroom social systems from a sociology lens and how classroom social systems impact how we teach our students and impacts their academic engagement, which results in academic achievement. Even in all of that and learning about the sociology of classrooms, there was still something going on that I had to figure out what was my part. As a teacher, as a principal, what is my part? What is my role in the ethic of care? And here's what I figured out. As I began to write my first book, The Power of People, 4 kinds of people who can change your life. And there are 4 kinds. The book says, 1, you were born powerful. What an amazing revelation to a young person who comes into your classroom, who no one has maybe never even told them that they love them, much less that they were powerful. Much less that they mattered, much less that they were valuable and important. Wow, what a revelation to actually get into the hearts and minds of our students. What about your staff? Has anyone ever told your staff that they were powerful? Now we know staff are powerful. Why? Because they're in a position of power. Because they are, staff members in an educational institution. Omaha Public Schools is a position, an institution, and they have a position of power. Why? Because they're staff. But what about their personal power? Have you ever seen and walked into a classroom and seen a para talk to a young person who is acting up? And the para can say to that young person, you know what, young person number 1, I know that you are better than that, and I know that you are smart. And what I want you to do is give yourself an opportunity to stay here in this classroom and learn and to become the amazing person you were born to be. And here's a para. They don't have a degree, quote unquote. They may not have a master's or they may not even have a bachelor's degree. Maybe they only have a certificate or have finished high school, but they figured out something about themselves and the young people. They have figured out that they can influence through the ethic of caring about that young people. They can influence those young people and they can lend their personal power and leverage that so the young person responds. And then you'd find a teacher who maybe is a licensed teacher, maybe who has not developed that ethic of care with her students. And so the students, they just don't respond the same way. Let me tell you, our students and our staff, they need us to know, and they need to know that somebody cares. And they need to know that it is okay that they are who they are, that they are how they are, that we are willing to accept them wherever they are and however they come to us. That is an ethic of care. So I figured out from writing my book that there were 2 types of power. And that as teachers, administrators, as principals, as staff, as bus professionals, transportation professionals, when your student comes into that bus first thing in the morning, and as you demonstrate an ethic of care by a simple smile and a good morning, Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Jose. Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Leroy. Good morning. Good morning. And they know that you care. You know their name. What they do is that you're telling them at that very moment, I care about you. I want you here. And as a result, I want you to have a great day of learning. That bus driver is actually setting up, through the ethics of caring, setting up that young person to have a good day in the classroom. So what I figured out is in those positions, there's two types of power. There's positional power and personal power. You know, in my last years working with the principal cohort through the Minnesota Humanities, I have had an amazing experience with the OPS principals. They have been an incredible group of caring, authentic, they have been just brilliant people who, in their heart of hearts, they want to do their best for their students. And here's the first thing I said to our principals. Nobody cares if you're a principal if you don't know how to manage your positional power and your personal power and use both levels of power, leverage them to be excellent and to interact from a place of caring about your staff, caring about your students, and caring about your parents and community. Nobody cares about that position. So what I have actually been working with our principals on is how do you leverage your positional power because you have it. You're the principal in that building. How do you help your teachers leverage their positional power because they have it? They are teachers in that classroom. How do you help your parents level their positional power because they have it, because they are the parent, the first teachers of their children? How do you leverage that positional power? How do you then use your positional power to demonstrate an ethic of care so that every student who walks into your building knows that you care about them, that you want them there, that they matter there? You know what happens with students when they know that you want them in their building? And that you want them to be excellent, that you want them to be their brilliant, amazing selves, and you want them to achieve? You know what happens to your children? They get happier. And you know what happens to you? You get happier. Let me tell you a little secret. When you have happy children, when there's joy in your classrooms, there's joy in your hallways, there's joy in your staff, there's joy in your school, let me tell you what happens. You have less discipline issues. Absolutely. There's no need to act up. Because do you know why so many children act up? Because they need someone to desperately see them. They need someone to know that they are there. And so what do? They act up. Absolutely. They'll act up until you see them. And unfortunately, when we see them acting up, right, what we do is we take the necessary steps to often move them out of the educational setting. The truth is that your students are saying to you, I need some joy. I need to know that someone cares about me. I need to know that someone values me. I need to know that I can be a happy child in this school, in these hallways. I need to know that I have enough, that you are helping me find that place in me, the second level of power. You're helping me find my personal power to be excellent in school. So principals and teachers and staff, what we've got to do is we've got to take our positional power. We've got to leverage that with our personal power. And what is your personal power? It is your ability to create change. First of all, in you, and to influence change in your staff and your students. You have personal power. Don't wait until someone gives you a position for you to exercise your personal power. No, without any word, any position, any title in that school, here's what your students need. They need to know that when I walk into my school in Omaha Public Schools, that at every step of the way, someone is showing me that they care. Someone is showing me that I matter. Do you know what I teach principals to teach their staff and to teach their students? I tell them to teach them the 4 core elements of personal power, which is the 4 I ams. I teach them to tell their students and their staff that they are valuable. You want to build efficacy in your students? Boy, you just tell them that they are valuable. You treat them like they are valuable. Treat them like they're already brilliant because they are. Treat them like that they are already amazing because they are. It's the second core principle. I am important. Oh, wow. I tell you, you want to get a young person to get to learning, you make them feel like they're important. And they will learn anything for you. It's amazing. Here's what's incredible to me too. As you help young people feel more important, just a little tip. What's one of the best ways to help a young person feel like they're important? Give them hard work to do. Challenge them. Increase your expectations for them. Help them to know that you know and believe in your heart of hearts that they can do that work, that they can achieve, that they can graduate from high school, that they can go to college. You give them those expectations, and guess what your young people will do for you? I have found in my work as a teacher and now as the founder of Girls in Action, Girls Taking Action and Boys of Hope here in Minneapolis, I have found that every time we give a high expectations to our young people, they achieve to it. As a college professor, every time I gave my students a high expectation, they achieved to it. As a 5th and 6th grade teacher, every time they achieved to it. I remember one of my students who came to my classroom just totally last stop, right? Nobody else wanted this boy. 5th grade, had been literally, mother was a crack addict, literally born into an institution. The minute he was born, he was taken from his mother, literally. And he had been in foster care, at the foster care, institutionalized. When he got to me in 5th grade, he could barely communicate and barely read. And every teacher said that they just couldn't get through to him. You know what I did for that young man? I kept telling him, and I kept giving him work that he had to work hard on. I kept telling him that he could do it. And then I gave him a reading buddy. I said, you know what? I want you to teach reading to a kindergartner. And now he had to what? Put into practice what it is that I was teaching him in our 5th grade classroom. What did I do for that young man? I said, you have the power to change your life. You're important. You matter. And I care enough about you to not ever give up. What does it mean to build efficacy in your students? It means to help them find their personal power, that place in them where they will try again, where they know that they're important and valuable, where they know that they are loved, the 3rd core principle of personal power, and then that they are powerful, that they can create change in their lives, they can create change in that classroom, they can influence change even in their families. Do you know some of your children, because they are thriving in your schools, they will go home to their families and become an inspiration to their moms and their dads and their cousins, that they too can thrive, they too can be successful. I am thrilled about this strategy of the ethics of care, and I look forward to seeing this put into place throughout in your entire OPS district. Thank you for an opportunity to be a part of getting our students to their next level of academic success and success in life. Thank you. I'm Dr. Verna Cornelia Price.